All right, so this is Underlore. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Fire Dad, and this is Flame Mom. This podcast is assuming you already know the basics of Undertale, and you're just trying to understand the alternative universes. As I said, I'm Fire Dad. I also go by Arple Noon on Instagram. I'm a writer and an artist. And Flame Mom, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. So I go by Flame Mom on Discord. I don't think I have any other real social media accounts out there. But I do some professional and non-professional writing. And I'm just excited to learn more about the Undertale universe post the game. I've really only played the game when it came out. I was 16 at the time. It was the cool new game, and then after that, I really only knew about the main premise of the game. So the alternate universes that came out after the fact boggle the mind, truly. So I'm happy to learn.
Yeah, I've only been in the fandom about 3-ish years. I remember when it came out, and I was like, "Oh, neat game." And then I kind of moved on with my life, and things changed, and I ended up falling hard, mostly into the alternate universes, so much more than the original game. So like I said, we're going to focus mainly on just the alternate universes with this podcast. If there does come a case that we need to cover the original Undertale, or if there's a higher demand for a certain subject from the original Undertale, we can do that. So we need to go over a few terms briefing just to try to help us understand what's going on here. So I'm going to use UTAU or UTAUs to stand for Undertale Alternative Universes. When I say OG canon, that is canon for the original game, like knowledge that we know for sure was intended for the original game. When I say canon, that can refer to the original game or a particular content creator's canon. Like if they're making a comic or if they made a certain character, whatever their canon is, when I say canon, it can refer to either or. When I say fanon, that's going to refer to community accepted canon. Like community accepted canon, for example, would be the idea that Gaster is Sans and Papyrus's dad. That would be fanon. Because we really don't know that if he is or not, but it's very widely accepted in a lot of people's headcanons. And then that takes us to headcanon. Headcanon is what an individual person chooses to believe about the canon of the multiverse. And then finally, meta. Meta is going to refer to the aspects of characters that in some way are directly influenced by or influencing the real world. So like a lot of these different characters will have ask blogs like on Tumblr. And it's very meta because the characters are directly talking to the people who are sending in questions. So, and a part of the introduction too, we have to talk about trigger warnings. There will be cussing in this series because I can't help myself. The images we show on screen may contain images of gore, blood, or extreme violence, smoking, drinking. There may occasionally be ship art, but we will avoid anything problematic. Many discussions will involve mental health issues or triggering scenarios because UTAUs are really created by anyone. So if you're listening, please be prepared for that. And I'm not going to claim to be an expert at any of the UTAU lore. It's going to be impossible for me to be comprehensive. So if I get anything wrong, go ahead and just say so in the comments. Please be nice about it. And we will try to address any inconsistencies in the following episode. So, Flame Mom, do you have any starting questions to kick us off?
Do I? It's a good question. So I have heard of some AUs, and would like to know more about particularly just things like, let's see. So I know about two basic AUs, I would call them, Underfell and Underswap. They seem to be the oldest that I know of, and I could be wrong. But they also just seem very, like, understandable to someone like me who, again, has only played the game.
I apologize, because I should have said that the topic of today's episode was going to be ink and error. So, yeah, I apologize. That's my mistake.
All good. But yeah, I'd like to learn more about those. So, because they seem very creative. Yes, ink and error, and just more of the newer AUs, I'd say, that are a bit harder to understand because they aren't just one tiny change from the game.
Like you're kind of looking at like AUs that are either newer or just haven't been as developed yet.
Yeah, there's so much to them that they're so complex and they need a bit more of a backstory rather than just they're a little more evil or they just swapped personality.
Right. Yeah, we can definitely, since I have all my notes currently for today are over error in ink, we can definitely address more of the complicated, like, maybe in the next episode. So you're really interested in Underswap and Underfell, but you kind of already understand what they're about. We can get maybe in the next episode more into like Swap Fell and Fell Swap and Spell Swap Gold and Fell Swap Red. We can go into that for the next one. So for today, though, what do you know about like ink and error?
So far, I know that ink has a paintbrush and they create things like worlds and possibly characters, although I don't know. And then error does the opposite, and they have strings.
Okay. So yeah, I'll briefly describe them right off the top. So it is a very big misconception that ink is the creator of different worlds and different characters. He is, by his canon from his creator, the one who created him, he is not a creator. He cannot create people. He cannot create worlds. He can create portals, and my headcanon is at least he can create mundane objects. But he is more a facilitator for creators to create AUs. So it's very meta. Yeah, it's very meta in that way.
Gotcha. It's more like the ancient Greek mythological seven muses of sorts, rather.
Exactly. He's definitely like a muse, either like a muse or an avatar for a creator. But yeah, I would say the Seven Muses is a very good description of what he does. And Error, I think you're a lot more accurate with Error. He is a destroyer of AUs. He kind of sees like anything that's not like the pure original Undertale as like an anomaly, and so he's trying to destroy it. And his deal is it kind of meta explains why we have certain AUs that aren't well developed, or if we have certain AUs where like we only have a few existing characters from those AUs. It's a meta explanation for why if an AU isn't developed enough, we just blame it on error.
Oh, gotcha. So, okay.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and start because we'll talk about the different characters' origins. We really have to kind of start with Error since he was the first one who came. He was the first one that was made. Ink came like a few months later. So let's see. Before we start with Error, though, we have to start with a completely other character named Geno. Do you know anything about Geno?
Not at all, other than Papagenos, but I feel like that's a bit different.
Okay, but you generally know what he looks like, right?
Not at all. I have no idea who Geno is.
Okay, so go ahead and go into the episode images channel. Geno is your very first image that's on there, and this image is created by Lover of Piggy's Crayon Queen. She is the creator of Geno, she's the creator of Error, and then she's also the creator of Fresh Sands. Or I think I think their pronouns are she, her. I might be wrong. I have seen them occasionally use masculine terms for themselves. So if I say she, her, and I'm incorrect, I apologize. I'll try to use they, them. So for Geno, so the whole concept of Geno is he's also called Aftertale Sans because he comes from a comic called Aftertale that Crayon Queen created. You can read the whole thing on the Tumblr. It's honestly really fantastic. It's more because the first when I went to go research it, I thought it was just going to be kind of a one-off explanation of how this character exists, which a lot of like outcode characters that tends to happen where they just have a short comic to explain their origin. No, he has like a full-on like several chapters story. Honestly, I really need to take the time to read all of it. I only read some of it, but it is really good. Yeah, that second image that you see on that's the first page of it. So the kind of idea behind Geno is that so let's see, the first publication of this first page came out November 13th, 2015. So this came out pretty much almost exactly a month after the original Undertale was released. And what happened is, so the idea of his story is that as you go through the comic, it's just like literally repeated genocide runs. First just keeps killing him, keeps killing all his friends over and over, and he's just getting sick of it. And so we're really seeing, I got to be careful because I don't want to go too deep into him. One, because I haven't done enough extensive research on Geno, and two, because this is an Error in Ink episode. But this is really, we're really beginning to see the beginnings of this version of Sans going crazy from repeated No Mercy runs. I need to try to say No Mercy more often because YouTube can get kind of weird with the G word. So yeah, so how we get an error. Now I've heard Crayon Queen has had two different versions of origins for error. I tried to research them, I've heard about them, but I couldn't figure out what was what. So I'm just going off the fandom wikis for my information of what his origin is. So the way we get an error is what happens is Geno gets stuck in the code of the game itself. He gets stuck in like the save screen or the start screen of Undertale because he's trying really much to try to survive the No Mercy runs. And what happens is an error occurs when either that Geno breaks out of the code entirely into the anti-void, or if in the actual comic there's a subplot of Sans starts taking determination to try to defeat Frisk. And so it becomes like at some point he starts experimenting with the determination too much, and that breaks him out of the code of the game. Now, do you know anything about the anti-void?
I can assume what it is. I assume that, based on what I've learned from previous science classes in like high school and whatever, that it is probably like empty space of sorts that kind of connects everything together, but yet it's just so empty and devoid of truly anything material that anything can happen. I assume in this video game-based world.
So the anti-void, so we have the void, which actually does exist canonically in Undertale. So for the UTAUs, the void is the place where nothing exists at all. The anti-void is where everything exists all at once. So that's like we have the void, which is complete black, so nothing is there, and then we have the anti-void, which is complete white. The idea is that everything exists all at once, and so when the characters are in the anti-void, they kind of bring some void with them in order to kind of exist. And it's more or less a metaphysical space that exists on blank screens and white sheets of paper. So to us, blank screens and white sheets of paper are literally the anti-void. So when you see comics of like the different UTAU characters interacting in just white space, they're literally in white space. It's not that the creator didn't fill in the white space, they are literally in the anti-void.
Oh, very creative. All right. As someone who has learned about white space in like writing class and whatever, that sounds pretty dang interesting.
Yeah, I would love to figure out who originally created the idea of the anti-void. It might have been Crayon Queen, but don't quote me on that. But someone did initially come up with the idea that the anti-void, like the literal white around the characters that isn't being filled in, is an actual space. So yeah, that's really cool. So what happens is Geno gets trapped in the anti-void, and he gets to a point where like he loses some of his mind, he loses his logic, he loses parts of his memories. He still remembers a little bit about himself. He does forget about being Geno, though. So that actually plays into a completely different character named Fatal Error, which we won't go into. The art is gorgeous of Fatal Error if you ever get the chance to look at it, but he is definitely another character that would need a whole different episode to himself, because he is Geno crossed with error, so he's like a super error.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So yeah, After Tale officially ended in April 2018, or April 18th, 2017. And then I was trying to research when the first occurrence of error actually occurred, or when Crayon Queen first created him. The first posting on the Ask Error blog is dated December 30th, 2015. So sometime circa November, December. But there had to have been some point before, like the image that I have on there of him saying, "Oh, that's obvious. I like to play with my puppets." That's the earliest image I could find of him, but there's obviously a question being asked to him on the blog. So at some time before that, Crayon Queen had to have created the concept of him for someone to ask him a question. So his deal is he destroys different anomalies. He sees other AUs as glitches or mistakes. Ironically, he does not view himself as an anomaly. This I'm getting from Undertale AU Fanon. He likes to seek and destroy AUs left and right, all except for ones he likes. So he's kind of a hypocrite, like Outer Tail and Underdevelop. Error's primary thing is seeking and destroying AUs that do not match the original Undertale game file. However, there are many AUs he has been incapable of destroying, which is pretty much any AU that has remained popular enough to continue being reproduced. So that's why, like, in his Ask Error blog, there's like a whole subplot where he's trying to destroy Underswap. But because Underswap is such a popular AU, he can't destroy it because people keep reproducing and making content for it.
It's kind of like the immune system of the Undertale fandom in its whole.
Absolutely. I definitely like to think of him that way. I like to think of him as, he's definitely a character when you look at him right away, like, oh, well, that's just an evil Sans. But I really view him as a way that he kind of keeps the UTAUs healthy in almost an indirect way. Like, I don't think he initially realizes what he's doing is actually helping facilitate the growth of the fandom. But I definitely like to think of it that way, where he does kind of cut the fat of things that don't really rise in popularity. And he can also be used as headcanon to ignore certain parts. Like if there's an AU that you don't like, you can just straight up headcanon that Error doesn't like it either, and he's gotten rid of it, and you can just ignore its existence.
Interesting. Yeah, the eraser or an artist / a volunteer, what is it, white blood cell or something, like the immune system. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Understandable to me then.
Yeah, because as much as he wants to destroy a lot of different AUs, either he can't or he's straight up hypocritical and doesn't. Like, for example, like Outer Tail, which is the space-based one that I told you about. It's more focused around like the musical remixes, but there is a lot of really nice art for it. And the premise is that instead of being underground, they're banished to space.
Like a Wall-E kind of thing, but not.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Wall-E thing. I'm not. I didn't do any research specifically for Outer Tail, so how Frisk gets to Outer Tail, I'm not sure. How does a child get to space?
Surprise.
So falling upwards.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but maybe. I'm not sure. If there's a lot of requests for Outer Tail, we can do that. It would definitely be a lot. It would be a more music-heavy focused episode. And I'd probably like have you actually like listen to some of the music because we don't want to play like other people's music on the channel. I don't think that would be fair to them.
Oh, all good. I love music. Absolutely love it. Like 10 years choir.
Yeah.
Love it. So send me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then let's see. Yeah, so we can blame error for worlds not fully existing. Crayon Queen is also the creator of Fresh Sands, and Fresh Sands confuses and frightens me. I love him. I really feel like he has his place in the multiverse. He definitely plays like the Jungian jester, and if you don't know who Carl Jung is, I'm very old.
This is interesting. I actually don't know much about Fresh Sands. I assumed that it was just Undertale, but based in like the 90s.
He is another outcode character, so he doesn't. When I say outcode character, that means a character that either was created solo on their own and they don't have a full world AU, or their AU doesn't exist anymore. That's what an outcode character is. He, I know it has something to do with a parasite in his skull that's controlling him. I feel like I'm afraid to go down that rabbit hole because it would be a whole episode itself. So if Fresh Sands is really popular, if people really want us to talk about Fresh Sands, I can do that. So let's go ahead and move on to Ink then.
All right.
So Ink was created by the creator Comyet, also known as MyBi. I believe that's how I'm saying it. It's MYE and then BI. And his fandom page on Undertale OC is really comprehensive, so I'm probably just gonna read off some of this. So Ink came from a conceptual AU that never got off the ground. He's the first and only character with a true soul, yet despite his effort to improve the AU, he never got a reaction from the inhabitants. In a fit of despair, he destroyed his own soul, accidentally causing him to stumble into blank void, so the anti-void, where he became an emotionless being alone in the vast space of emptiness. Eventually, an ink brush, along with different kinds of paint from an unknown artist, fell onto the blank canvas, each color imbuing him with a feeling. After some time without color, though, he would revert back to his emotionless self. Ink fixed this problem by filling vials with the colors that were splashed on him. It allowed him to pretend to have a soul so that he could feel. Gradually, Ink used the colors from the creators to create the Doodle Sphere. So the Doodle Sphere is just basically his place, his little corner of the anti-void that he created for himself. So he travels to different AUs using the power of his inks, and he basically just protects them or helps facilitate their creation or their growth. But because he doesn't have like an actual soul, he can be like a huge jerk to people. He can be very inconsiderate, teasing, and he at times even like kind of looks down on other AUs.
Gotcha. So much like the Supernatural reference coming out. So if you haven't watched Supernatural.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like when Sam Winchester no longer has a soul and his personality changes because of that. There's things that are lacking and things that are heightened because of that.
Yeah. So if he like has like a strong emotion rather quickly, he can run out of that emotion and either revert to a different emotion or go like emotionless. Until he gets more of the paint. I think it's still debatable on exactly where he gets the paint from. I think he gets it from the Doodle Sphere. Whoever, I don't know if it's technically it continues to be that same unknown artist that feeds it to him, or if it's other artists that he can get the paint from too. But that's how he gets his emotions, is basically by the creators facilitating those emotions to him. But yeah, and then canonically, Ink's job is to protect the scripts of all the AUs. He does not create them. I know in my particular AU, I'm setting it up to where it looks like he creates them, but he actually doesn't. That's actually like a plot point. People think he's creating the AUs, but he isn't. So with Ink, we do have to address the design subject. So do you know anything about the Ink's design debate or kerfuffle that happened?
I have no idea. He simply looks like he has the scarf, except it's a different color. He seems to kind of look like a street artist of sorts, like someone from like New York City or whatever, and just walking about like a semi-striped like long sleeve shirt and like brown pants or whatever, possibly a belt, and then a gigantic paintbrush.
Okay, so let me see the images. So the first image of Ink that's in the episode images, that's what Comyet is officially using right now on the actual blog for him. The second image you see I have titled by Cookie Hannah on Comyet. So what happened is back in 2016, because he was created sometime in February in 2016, Comyet created this version of him. Well, she was 16 at the time. And I believe Comyet's female, she, her. I'll try to use they, them again because I'm not 100% sure. But they ripped the design off this character that was a Pokemon OC from a different creator on DeviantArt. Now, at the time, they didn't realize how insanely popular Ink was going to become. And sometime back in like 2019, the actual creator for this Pokemon OC, Cookie Hannah, came and addressed the issue to her, like, hey, this is my design. I think that there's been some kind of mistake. And, or they said that, they were young at the time. They didn't know how popular Ink was going to be, and they went ahead and did a redesign in 2020, the beginning of 2020, which is the more white shirt, sans the blue jacket, the more Japanese style like pants and brush. That's where that's what the new design is. So to respect the original artists of the Pokemon OC, Comyet has asked everyone to please use the new design for Ink. So you can kind of see like a cutoff date where you kind of know how old a certain work of art is depending on which design the artwork is using for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and I see like the... Okay. I've played Pokemon before. I know that that's like a Pokemon, looks like a Ranger OC. All right, cool.
Yeah, exactly. So, because a lot of Undertale UTAU lore is being very solidified by Underverse, I'm sure you've heard of Underverse, right? By I believe it's spelled, their username is Jacquet, is what they go by.
You'd be surprised about how much I do not know. I do not know what Underverse is, other than probably the universe of Undertale, the universe of Undertale. What I'm getting.
Okay, we are definitely going to have to do an Underverse episode. That might even need to be our next episode, because Underverse is an animated series that's ongoing on YouTube, and it's really like a full-on like interactions between all the different AUs. We'll have to do a watch party, and then we can do like a discussion on it like as the next episode. I think that I definitely think that will have to be our next subject because it's so important to the community. It's basically our anime series.
Gotcha. Well, sounds good. I'm happy to watch it.
Okay. Yeah. So, oh, what was I just saying? So with the new redesign, because everything that currently exists, or at least that I've seen up to season 1, I purposely am avoiding stuff for season 2 because I want to wait till the whole thing comes out. But season 1, you will see Ink in his old design. It has been addressed from Xtail, because Xtail is the custom AU that is in Underverse. It has been addressed from them that Ink will appear in season 2 with his new design. So I'm really proud of the community. They're definitely really respecting MyBuy's wishes and going forward with the new design for Ink, which is very encouraging.
Nice, yeah. There does seem to be a lot of positivity and respect in the Undertale community, which is really nice.
Yeah. I heard that we used to have like a lot of problems early on, but I definitely think the community is kind of mellowing out. We are getting more respectful of other people's headcanons, more respectful of how we choose to use the characters, and it also helps a lot that the people who created these original characters are very open to like different ideas. They're very open to other creators using their work as long as they get credit for it.
Yeah, so like a proverbial fine wine, especially as I can assume a lot of people who started playing the game when it first came out were probably, in their teenage years or at most young adult, if not teenager or preteens. So over time, things develop and whatever. So yeah, I can see that.
So fun fact about some of these characters, because shipping occurs in the Undertale fandom, Comyet is okay with Ink being shipped with anyone. And it's really kind of his nature to do whatever seems good at the time. So it is kind of, anytime Ink is shipped with anyone, it is semi-canonical because he is the type that would totally be like, yeah, sure, whatever. But Crayon Queen, however, does not canonically ship Error with Ink. Of course, they don't mind if people do it. They're just like, that's fine. That's your canon. It is not canon to Ink, or it is not canon to Error.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I also put a note here. Comyet's original work on Tumblr, they do like a French style like illustration. It is absolutely gorgeous. If you do go check out their blog, it is amazing. They also have Ink's origin story, which is just titled His Story. You can find it on Comyet's blog. It's a little hard to find. I had to dig a little bit in the archives to find it. But there is a YouTube video by Callisto, CalYsto, who does a dub of it, and they do a really good job. It's very emotional. Ink is one of those where like he kind of just has a comic that explains where he came from. If there is more content from Comyet on him, I just didn't find it right away on their Tumblr. But his just kind of like explains where he came from, and then it's really kind of up to other creators to tell the rest of his story.
Which is really interesting to me from a creative writing standpoint, like to have a character and then to kind of, in a way, make them a public domain based character is fascinating, really.
Oh, I have to correct something I said. I said he was created in February of 2016. The first post I found of him was August 2016. So maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was in August that he was created. I'm not sure.
Gotcha.
But yeah, as you were saying with that, we can kind of address the legality of the whole UTAUs, because the thing is the creation of the UTAUs is still locked under the fact that Undertale is still copyrighted by Toby Fox. So
yes.
we can't.
Yeah, I meant more.
We can't. Right. We can't violate that. However, to some extent, the UTAUs are protected by a law called the Creative Commons Attribute Share Alike license. So Have you ever heard of like the SCP Foundation?
I feel like I have, and I just don't remember exactly what they do, but I can assume it has to do with, as long as you don't say that you are the original creator of something and you sell things for that as if you had created the entire idea altogether. Like if someone pretended to kind of be Toby Fox in a way and say that they created the Undertale, idea and game and whatever, then that would be, crossing the line and stuff in a legal matter. But if you were simply either creating ideas based off of something or creating art and saying that you have created a character based off of something, and then, you might get like money for the art that you produce, but not like money from the idea that you've created the idea, then you should be good.
Right. So the SAP Foundation, I'm just using it as an example because it's very similar to what's going on with the UTAUs, but it is functionally a little different because it's not locked by any previous fully copyrighted content. So the SCP Foundation is under the same kind of Creative Commons license. The idea is that everyone people can contribute to this like universe, which is the SCP Foundation, but everyone can take your work and sell it. They should credit you, but no one can claim full copyright. They had this confuckle about some guy in Russia tried to fully copyright the SCP Foundation, and they had to take a whole bunch of donations to fight that because legally he shouldn't have been able to do that, but when you're dealing with international laws, it can get kind of weird.
Oh,
but this is an Undertale podcast, not an SCP podcast.
The
difference
is a video game, right? I'm remembering now. It's a video game with
puppets? No, it is not. So the SCP Foundation, there are several video games dedicated to it, which contribute to the Creative Commons license. But it is originally a website kind of similar to Creepypasta where people can submit entries into the universe. Okay. So the UTAUs are kind of similar to that, except we still have to be careful about where we draw the line of what can be sold and what can't be. So say Jackie, who is the creator of Underverse, he or she, they can take donations like through Patreon, as long as it's legally considered a donation to continue animating. They cannot take advertising revenue from it. They can't take merchandise. They do have merchandise, but the merchandise has to be far enough removed from anything Undertale related in order for them to sell it.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of the same thing where we see this organic growing mythology that just about anyone can contribute to, but we are kind of in that awkward place where we're legally not supposed to sell anything too recognizable to Undertale.
Gotcha. Well, you learned something new.
Yeah. And also, neither of us are lawyers. I am definitely not a lawyer, so don't take this as legal advice. Just needed to address that. People sell fan art. There's a little leeway when you're selling something directly from your hand to someone. But I do not have the expertise to comment on the legality of that. I know that there is some leeway when you are directly selling from your hand to someone else in person. That's why you see like the sales of fan art really facilitated at conventions.
Okay, cool. So we've covered error and we've covered ink.
Yep. Do you have any questions about their relationship or anything else about them?
Yeah. So we've kind of got sort of a yin and yang experience with the two. Not exactly, but sort of. They represent very polarizing ideals. Is there anything about them meeting and what that means for the multiverse in and of itself?
I don't know. I would have to do further research, but I don't know if Comyet or Crayon Queen ever canonically made them meet in each other's stories. I think if it'd probably more likely be Crayon Queen who would have done that at some point, because they do have like a lot more content for error that I could find. I think they both do headcanon the acceptance that they know of each other and that they have fought and that they are adversaries. As for any actual canonical content showing between Crayon Queen and Comyet for that, I didn't find anything for that. But they do canonically, both of them know that the other exists.
Okay. Cool. Alright, so that makes a lot more sense to me now. Before I knew nothing of them other than some design features. But yeah, okay, that's cool.
So do we want to talk about some of the weird side characters? I don't have anything that goes in depth for them, but I can talk about we could talk about the weird variants if you would like.
Sure, and then possibly as an idea, because I mean, I'm looking at them both and they're both based off of the character sans, but there are so many different characters in the universe of Undertale, and at least how many? Bowie and the Gaster followers, or at least they are called Gaster followers either in
the Gaster followers, I think that might be a Phantom term, a Phantom's turn for them, the Gaster followers, yeah.
But they seem to probably know about like multiverse stuff or timeline stuff, so I'm wondering how or if they connect to Error and or Ink in any way.
OG canon, they obviously do not. I think that Error and Ink might be aware of the Gaster followers, but I have never seen any significant amount of medium of them interacting with them. I think the Gaster followers are more or less just really unfortunate souls that got trapped between reality and the void.
Okay.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of content of like original Sans interacting with the Gaster followers, but not Ink or Error. They're kind of very far removed from the original Undertale narrative. But yeah, let's talk about some of the variants. So, have you ever heard of the characters Template and Pale?
I have not, no.
Can you guess who Template and Pale are?
Now are you saying Pale with a P or Tail with a T?
Pale, Pale.
Okay. I want to make sure.
They have something to do with Ink and Error.
So, Template makes me think of when you're beginning something, so possibly something to do with Ink, in the sense that he is helping you to create something new. You might need a template for that, and then Pale might be something about I forget if the void is the white one or the anti-void is the white one, but whatever the white one.
The anti-void is the white one.
That's my idea for that. Pale relates to the anti-void, and template relates to Ink. Okay,
so Template and Pale are Ink and Error, but their moralities are swapped.
Ah, okay. So
Template is an error that facilitates creation, and Pale is a version of Ink who is a destroyer.
Okay, so like an Underswap version of the two.
Yeah, it's almost so there are actual swap versions where like there's a swap papyrus who is like a papyrus with Ink's personality, So we do try to avoid saying that they're the swap versions, because the swap versions usually refer to a sans and a papyrus swapping positions.
Gotcha, okay. I remember like learning about how it was more of like a personality swap thing, so that's what I was getting at, but yeah, understandable. Cool.
Right. Yeah, I can see where you would make that mistake, because ink and error are really considered very opposites of each other. Because ink never had a world to begin with, so he never had a papyrus. But like, if you see in my artwork that I've shown in the episode's images, there is an ink papyrus. Now, a totally different creator. Let me see if I can find them. A totally different creator created like Inktail, which I don't know if Comyet has any particular opinion of it. I like the headcanon, the idea that Ink became such a popular character for the multiverse that Inktail came into existence because of his influence. And I like to think that Ink kind of adopted the canon, or kind of adopted the AU for himself. That's not canon to Ink. That's my own headcanon, that Ink has adopted Inktail as his AU. Okay, so the creator of Inktail is Seven Good Angel is the username.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, because then there's another creator who created swap versions. There might be a few. I know there's one that I really like that created a swap ink. Let me find it. Ink papyrus. Actually, yeah, I think several creators have created a swap ink papyrus. The one that I find is my favorite. I don't think it's the original, but my favorite is by a user called Wishing Star in a Jar. And Wishing Star in a Jar has this beautiful artwork of the swap ink papyrus. All right, yeah, that's what he looks like, and that's the swap ink, not the ink, not the original ink papyrus, but the swapped, where like he's. And that's the thing too, is he doesn't even have like Ink's personality. He has more of like a traditional, like Japanese traditional, like he likes traditional art, poetry, like haikus, Japanese tradition kind of. The creator might be Japanese. I'm not sure. Then again, Japanese culture is so popular everywhere. But yeah, I think he's like a really.
I guess like going back to traditional means and then highlighting them.
Yeah. I dare say he's more like if Swap Papyrus got Ink's abilities, is more what he's like.
I like his design though, he's not poofy, but his clothing is poofy, and therefore I like his clothing because it's poofy.
Yeah. Yeah, the design is really good. I really love it. But yeah, so Template and Pale. Yeah, so that's a picture of Template and Pale.
Aw, so little, oh my gosh. You said Pale was error or Template was error?
Pale is ink but evil.
Okay. So,
and then error, or Template is error but good.
So Template is design-wise. To me, obviously, I know that the artists have actually implemented more changes to it than I'm noticing. But I just like how he's got a little pair of glasses. That's adorable. I love it.
And that's the thing. That is actually canon to Error. Error is nearsighted, and he does wear glasses.
Aww, okay, I like that. And then he's got little like digital like drawing pad stylus, right? Okay.
Yeah. So his whole deal is like digital art. So yeah, he uses a stylus instead. And then Pale's deal is that he melts the paint of different AUs and consumes them.
Oh. I feel like there's a Scooby-Doo movie with that premise. I like it.
Is there where they just melt worlds?
It's like a paint guy or something. I don't even remember, but it's something about paint. This guy produces paint and then creates monsters, and then to stop the monsters, they have to stop the guy.
Gotcha. Yeah, so the artwork I just posted now, that is from Crayon Queen of him and the Ask Error blog putting on his glasses.
Oh. What's the team? Anyway.
So, say what?
Sorry, I was, I'm not sure if it was Scooby-Doo or not. It might have been Teen Titans, but either way. It was a cartoon that I watched that
Teen Titans.
The origin of.
Gotcha. If anyone knows what Flame Mom is talking about, leave us a comment. Okay, another pair of characters I need to talk about, or I don't really need to talk about, I'm just filling out time, but another very popular pair of characters called Exemplum and Parable. Do you have any idea who they are, or can you guess what their deal is?
Parable sounds like... there's a video game based off of the premise, and I forget exactly what it's called. It might just be The Parable, but, I don't remember. Parable might have something to do with math. And I don't know about the other one.
Okay, because they are in relation to Ink and Error. I will share a picture of them and see if you can guess more of their deal.
They seem a bit more elemental. One's got jeans on. Well, both got jeans on, so I don't know if elemental.
I don't know if this is from the original creator. Again, I would have to, if we want to do an episode over Exemplum and Parable, because they have their own really long ongoing like comic series. I would have to do research into them. Their deal is kind of, or at least the vibe, I could be very wrong, but the art from them is fantastic. I love the art that comes from the fans who are fans of their story. Their story is they are from the same AU, and the vibe I get is it's an excuse to actually ship them. They are removed enough from Ink and Error where they can canonically be shipped.
Okay.
And yeah, I think like the deal is like one is like a bird. Obviously, neither of them have arms. So one is a bird and one is a jellyfish.
I like that. Okay, they've kind of turned into Pokemon-ish.
Yes. They're definitely, and they don't. As far as I'm aware, they have nothing to do with the multiverse. They just hang out in their own AU, but it's a very popular AU. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if they are canonically shipped in their story. I've just seen it. I get this vibe that it's a way to canonically ship two characters that are like Ink and Error.
With jeans. I can't get over how the top part of them are very...
I don't know if that's the official art for them or not. They do seem...
specific one. The top part looks like the Pokemon Arceus game, and in the bottom half is just jeans and socks, and I love it. Whoever made this art,
I think most of the art, I think they do wear jeans, because most of the art I'm coming up with, they do wear jeans. So there is 2 works of art of them that I would like to share, because I think it's gorgeous. Where did you go?
Well, while you're searching, it's truly fascinating to know that all of this came from
there it is.
People looking at the character of Sans and just going, we can do something with this. This is our canvas and our...
Yeah. My favorite with that is that Sans is enough like just one of those DeviantArt bases that it makes it really easy to just create characters based off that. That's my theory as to why one of the reasons why Sans is such a popular character is he looks enough like a DeviantArt base that people just started making so many different characters off of him. But yeah, this art is by cs.mt. This is also Exemplum and Parable, and I love this art. I don't know what happened to their legs. I think it's just a stylized choice.
Interesting.
Yeah. So let me see what else I have in my notes. So would we like to briefly talk about the ship children?
Sure, I again know nothing about these ship children, or if they have children, I don't know.
They do have 2 children. The children are not canonical. They're not canonical to Comyet or Crayon Queen, but they do have children that are extremely popular. The most popular one is named Paper Jam, and the second is Gradient.
Okay,
Let me see if I can.
Although I'm not sure if I'm confusing Paper Jam with that one Gravity Falls episode of the Paper Jam version of Dipper Pines, or if I'm actually thinking back to a version of Sans that I have seen before.
Well, it definitely, the thing is that's weird is the community, even though they might call him Paper Jam Sans, the community accepts that he is not a Sans because he is a child of ink and error. So this is a picture of Paper Jam and Gradient. I think Gradient came about first, but he didn't ever get very popular. But Paper Jam got really popular, and people were just like, "Oh, well, Gradient already exists," so they kind of made them brothers.
Okay, very great.
So their deal, they kind of have. They're very close. They're very close. I don't, again, not sure if it's canon, but fanon-wise, they're very close. To get around, like, the whole idea of, like, how do 2 male skeletons breed? The idea is that they were created through the remnants of Ink and Error's fights.
Okay, so more like how the moon was created versus how children are usually brought into.
I couldn't have said it better myself, how the moon was created. Yeah. It's very much an asteroid struck something, and we got something else out of it.
Awesome.
So Gradient has fanon-wise been considered the older brother, that he came about first, and the Paper Jam came after him. So they have their own duality too. So Gradient has all of the powers of both of his fathers. He has all of the powers of, like, creation that Ink has, and all of the powers of destruction. His deal is that he is such a recluse, and he only really cares about the company of Paper Jam, that despite how all-powerful he is, he has no involvement with the multiverse.
Awesome, yeah. So he is the one that has the sweatshirt and, well, I guess we both have sweatshirts. Anyway, the one that has the hood on, the picture that we're looking at right now, and a computer. Is that one, or is it the one that looks like they're looking at a piece of paper?
Right, the one looking at the picture.
Okay.
Yeah, the one with the Paper Jam, and the one with the laptop is Gradient.
Gotcha.
I love that. I love that. I think it was 2 different creators who created Paper Jam and Gradient, and they just kind of, the fanon just kind of like, yes, I love that, like, he's still kind of included with multiverse stuff, but he only and destroys his own things. And he could I love the idea that he could totally, like, wreck the multiverse. He just chooses not to.
Yeah, so he's kind of like a One Punch Man in that way, where he's just like, I could, but, like, there are better things to do today.
Exactly. I headcanon that he's autistic, and that's why, like, he doesn't want anything to do with other people. That's not meant any offense. I love characters that have, like, different physical or mental disabilities, or, like, different or neurodivergent. So I like the headcanon that he's autistic, and that's why he just wants to do his own thing. He doesn't care what's going on. And he really only enjoys the company of Paper Jam, his brother. Now, Paper Jam kind of is the opposite of Gradient in some ways. Paper Jam can also create and destroy. However, anything he creates quickly vaporizes out of existence, and anything he destroys quickly reforms. So Paper Jam, I love that where it's like, but on the opposite, he is trying his hardest to be involved with the multiverse. He is trying his hardest to be like, to kind of be more like Ink, because Ink tends to be more involved with him, at least from what I can tell, because Error doesn't want anything to do with him.
Okay.
Yeah, so he tries to be as much like Ink, except that like he is the lesser of the powers of both of his fathers.
Oh, and I should ask, they're all these characters. I mean, they're all he/him pronouns, correct?
For the most part, I'd have to research. I haven't seen any issues with them being not he/him pronouns. There are several that will use they/them as well as he/him, but I don't think there's any problem saying he/him. That is kind of an unfortunate thing where female variants, if there is like female variants, they kind of don't get as much popularity, which is unfortunate, but most of the time when we're talking about, they're going to be he/him, and some of them will also use they/them.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Because I'm like, oh right, they're children and not these AU variant versions of Sans. I was like, wait, okay, got it.
All right, so yeah, because it is kind of the thing where Gradient and Paper Jam are not technically Sans because they are the children of the two Sans. That's weird, but that's how it is.
All good.
But yeah, let's see. So do you have, I think we should go ahead and wrap up. Do you have any other questions about these characters, about Error and Ink, etc.?
I think we covered a lot. I don't have any specific questions right now.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you so much for teaching me all about, hold on, I can remember all their names. We've got Geno, Error, we've got Ink. I said them in the wrong order, but oh well. And then we've got a few others. I forget their names, and then the kiddos, the Paper Jam.
Yeah, we've got. I think we covered Ink Papyrus, Inktail, Swap Ink, Template and Pale, Exemplum and Parable, and then Paper Jam and Gradient.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So we're going to try to do the podcast on a bi-weekly basis. If you guys have any suggestions, any topics you would like us to talk about, I think it is really important that our next episode should be Underverse. Sometime you and me, Flame Mom, we can maybe we can watch it over Discord and do a recording and maybe save like some of the reactions. But yeah, I think next episode would definitely have to be over Underverse. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions or anything you would want us to cover as a topic, just leave us a comment. If there's anything I got wrong or you feel I got wrong, be kind, but go ahead and tell us in the comments. How do you guys feel about Ink and Error's relationship? How do you feel about like the origins of Geno? Do you want me to cover Fresh? Who is your favorite out of Ink or Error? That's a good one. Tell us who's your favorite. I want to see who watches the show. Who is their favorite Ink or Error? Do you have a favorite Ink or Error?
Oh, for me, I don't know. I think they are both good in very equal ways. I don't think I have a favorite yet.
I definitely agree. I think I like Error slightly more, but I don't think I would like Error as much as I do without Ink also existing.
Yeah, for me, they kind of feel like the embodiments of the personality archetypes, like I forget what they're called, but like in Dungeons and Dragons, when you have to pick your
like alignment charts.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on. Yeah, don't get me started on alignment. So, I'm pretty sure there's hundreds of podcasts just on alignments alone.
It seems like Ink is an embodiment of the chaotic spectrum of that.
Yeah, definitely like chaotic good.
More of the lawful version of that. Yeah,
like a lawful evil. I've seen Error kind of like fluctuate I can see him at times being chaotic evil. But the thing is, like, alignments from Dungeons and Dragons, they were always meant to be guidelines anyways, because you can't fit a person's whole personality into, like, 2 words.
Very true, very true, yeah. As a surface level understanding so far of these characters, that's where my mind goes. Obviously, there's much more to these characters that all of you and people who are not listening to the podcast have put for these characters, so, like, yeah, that's all. That's where my mind goes. But I will learn more, and my understanding will grow.
Yes. I think too with because there's a lot of interaction between Error and Ink in Underverse. I think you'll get a better idea of how the fanon has accepted their dynamic together. But yeah, with that, I'm going to say, please respect everyone's headcanons. If someone has a headcanon you don't like or see as problematic, don't interact with that person. And then, until next time, support your local metaphysical space skeletons. Toodles!